would have thunk it? Who would have guessed today would be the day that all this mumbo jumbo hair is getting chopped off my head? Well, what was the reason? It was getting kind of old. I kept, I don't know if you've really noticed, you'd have to be really watching all these, but for the last like 10 lifts or so, anytime I'd bend over, I'd always get a hair in my mouth. Ugh, super annoying. So back to baseline. But plan for today, lift wise, is back, lats, traps, rhomboids, teres, major, whatever other fancy pants anatomical name that you want to bust out. I think it's easier just to say back and move on. But pull downs, pullovers, rows. I mean, really, what else is there to it? You know, I've never really been a fan of an upper back, lower back split. Doing like more pull down focused stuff one day, and then more rows the next day. I just don't really mess with it. Because if you think about it, the dude who's doing that, compared to the guy who just does his whole back both times, if you add it up, I mean, they both got the same amount of work for their lats and their mid back after those 2 sessions. So I don't know, it just doesn't really make sense to me to spread them out like that. Some days I'll do more rows, some days I'll do more pull downs, but I'd say on average I kind of do just an even mix. But on the topic of, oh yeah, I was just talking about how some people don't want to take pre because they don't want to be dependent on it. In a similar fashion, or kind of in a similar style, some people are anti-straps. They're like, well, I don't want to have to rely on straps for back day, because what happens if I forget them? Semi-valid argument, but I swear you're seriously missing out. The amount of bicep activation and forearm activation that I can cut out from a pull down or a row by way of using a pair of hostile lifting straps. I mean, it's pretty much, I won't say night and day. It's not absolutely insane, but it is a really big difference to the point where, I, I'll almost ask people why they aren't using straps if they're doing back. And I mean, I don't know, man. The amount that I'm going to be able to squeeze my lats manually, rather than just sort of feel work being done with my upper arm, my biceps, and everything else up here. Really, I could not sympathize with a non-strap user. But I haven't been doing bent over barbell rows for a while. I don't know if I'm missing out too bad, honestly. I kind of feel like they're a very taxing movement to the point where just the amount of energy it takes to execute them, like a really good set. I'm not even talking about just like the fact that I'm going to be activating my glutes and my hamstrings and my lower back. There's also bracing and breathing involved. I think the amount of energy that I'm going to spend doing that compared to like a seated cable row or a seated machine row, it's just going to be more efficient to do it that way. So that's kind of some of the stuff that floats around in my mind when I'm thinking about my back training. But even though I'm thinking about all this fancy whatever, all I'm really going to do when I get in there after I warm up a little bit in the cables, pick a row that I like, work up to a heavy weight and do the first working set, find a pull down that I like, back and forth, maybe 2 times or 3 times each, do a pullover at the end, and once I'm fully fatigued and pumped, that's my cue to check the pump, do a couple lat spreads, and roll. So let's just get in there and get started. All right, I'm in a little bit of a rush, so not too much banter. Plate added to the side of the stack, single arm pull downs. Really try to squeeze to the bottom. Nothing else to it. Okay. Okay. Let's do one more. Ugh. No. Okay. No. No. Okay. Let's pick a new movement. I need to kind of temper my ego because the stack on this machine is actually heavy to the point where, honestly, I think I'm only doing scrappy reps. So instead, a little bit lighter than the stack. Actually, I'll go even one lighter than that. I'll try to make these reps real methodical rather than just, you know, fast and brutish. Okay. One more like that. Okay. Okay. Let's do something lat focused next. I wish there was a way to add like a 45-pound plate to this stack. Unfortunately, that's proven impossible. But this will just end up being a lighter squeezing set. So I'm gonna try my damnedest, hold it at chin height for a second on the first few reps when I'm strong. And once I feel pretty fatigued where I can't get this low anymore, I'll start to let the form, I don't want to say break down, but let's just say loosen and, you know, kind of force out some partials. Okay. One more. I think I'm gonna make this one just kind of, let's just say quick, for lack of a better word. You know, like if the last set was the equivalent, and honestly in the last one, I didn't even really hold it that long, but the basic idea of it, like imagine doing a set of leg extensions where you hold it at the top for a second and then go down slow. Hold it, down slow. This set would be the equivalent of just busting out rep after rep after rep and burning out and really fatiguing, kind of just, I don't want to say as quick as possible, but, well, I kind of do want to say that. But whatever. Quick sets, slow sets, squeezing sets, As long as they're hard sets, then you're doing something right. Okay. All right, let's I don't know what I want to do next. Let's think about it for a few seconds. This might be the finisher. Maybe not though, we'll have to see. But I like bent over rows, but I don't really love bent over dumbbell rows. I kind of feel like I always have a ton of like ab and side adductor, no, oblique work to like balance myself out since I'm kind of crooked. So something I'm doing with a cable. For one thing, I just like the strength curve more. You can't build up so much momentum, so it's kind of more constant tension. But it just feels better. And in its basic premise, it's the same thing. So I think one, maybe two here, and that's probably it. Okay, let's call it there. Back complete. There we go. All right, so let's see what, how many sets was that? 2 sets of single arm pull downs, 2 sets of machine rows, 2 sets of machine pull downs, 7 sets. That's about right. Just by kind of gauging off of what I end up doing, I usually float around probably 6 to 9. Just kind of depending on the feeling, because like if I think that I do 6 really good sets and I feel like my whole back is already fatigued, why would I sit here and just pump out more for no reason, you know? Like the point of the lift itself isn't an endurance test, right? It's not a test of how long you can endure, to quote Mr. Mentzer, right? It's just to stimulate growth and then roll. So if I feel like I did that in, what was that, 7 sets, then that's when I want to be done, you know? That's sort of an approach that makes a pretty solid amount of logical sense to me. Oh. What do we think? How are we looking lat-wise? Oh my goodness. Not bad. Not stinking bad. Oh, oh goodness. Oh. Oh. It's fucking hard to hold a back pose. At least those double bi shots. Because I feel like my back is so pumped already. To flex it by holding my arms up and spreading them just fucking burns. But the goal was to come in, thrash back, and that goal has been accomplished. So now I get to just go home and make a 7-ounce sirloin. I think that's how heavy it was. Have some bread, butter, maybe some mashed potatoes. Have a couple more meals after that. Then get in bed and have a nice long good night's rest. Well, that's pretty freaking cool. It's been a while since I've seen my traps with during the pump check after back, because my hair has been covering it up for so long. Jeez, that's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, like I was saying, goal was to get a good back pump, and the good back pump was obtained. And not just a pump, of course. I mean, I want to get some muscle stimulation too with some heavy sets, which I think those single arm pull downs plus, well, actually, yeah, I guess those were really the heaviest sets that I did. Those definitely did the trick, I think. But honestly, I would prefer to get some seated cable rows in. I'd say seated cable rows with like, what is this guy doing? With, I don't even love the V-bar. You know, the one where your hands are like this, right together. That's not really my favorite. Doesn't really do it for me. I use it sometimes just for variability's sake. But you give me a heavy stack on seated cable rows with like a slightly wider than shoulder width neutral grip handle. And not that it's ever a question that I'm going to get a good back pump. You know, back, I'm pretty much on it every time. But you give me that situation, that's a guarantee. That's a surefire bet. You're throwing loaded dice when I get that handle. This gym, I'm pretty sure they're getting some upgrades soon-ish in terms of the weight equipment side of things. They just totally replaced, like 50 treadmills or, 30 treadmills or so. So us cardio fans, I guess we got a little upgrade first. Not that I think, I'm not being mean. I'm just using statistics. Statistically, I don't think you do your cardio. So I guess if your gym replaced all the cardio machines and upgraded them, you probably wouldn't really care. But enough of that. Let's not turn this into a cardio, into an, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Into a cardio skipping hate rant? Something, whatever. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there's rumbling underneath people's voices that some new cables, some new pull downs, some new rows, some new other all sorts of nice little trinkets for us are going to be coming in rather shortly-ish, maybe a few months, but that'll be pretty cool. That's something I like, seeing gyms make upgrades over time, because like, I'm obviously not the gym owner. They can do whatever they want. If I don't like it, I don't have to go. But I've seen gyms, and I've been to gyms that I've gone to consistently over, periods of years. And they're just in fucking, like, equipment just broken for a long time. Some new equipment that just doesn't get assembled right. It's just kind of annoying to see, But I would hope that your gym's not like that. And the owners and everybody else super cool, asking people for their opinions and thoughts on what new upgrades or whatever they should get. That is the best case scenario. But until then, I really don't think my back training is going to suffer. Even though I didn't use the cable row or a legit lat pull down, that was still a really good back day. I could definitely see a lot of lifters complaining, like, how am I supposed to do back without a pull down? How am I supposed to get a good back workout without a seated, or, whatever else? Insert any workout with, how am I supposed to get a good workout in if I don't have blank machine? I don't think that's the right way to go about it, man. I make this analogy a lot. Only a bad craftsman blames his tools or lack thereof. Like, I still have really sick back days just in the basement. Back, chest, arms, legs. Legs is where I kind of don't practice what I preach, because I really don't want to train legs in the basement, because there's not a lot of equipment for me. Like, it's hard to hit hamstrings and quads just with free weights, apart from squats and maybe like lunges that I'm not really a fan of. But, barbell, dumbbells, one cable, I can get a sick ass back day with that. I can get a sweet arm day, solid ass chest day. Shoulders you don't need much to get a shoulder workout in. Honestly, I could get as good of a shoulder pump as any other lift if I mean, you could just take any 30-pound object that you have in the house and do like single arm side laterals. Or I guess you could do double if you have two of them. But yeah, man, anything. You give me a gallon of milk And not only am I going to get some good macros in for my daily caloric needs, but I could get a fucking solid shoulder pump just by doing slow, controlled single arm lateral raises, reverse for the rear delt, maybe some front raises for some front delt activation if that's what you want to do, if your front delts need work. So, I don't really like hearing too much complaining about equipment, but yeah, sometimes it's warranted. Right? So, on the topic of just equipment in general, a little bit of I wouldn't say a rule of thumb per se, but maybe just something to keep note of. You got to make sure that the equipment that you're using is set up right. Like don't oh, I see this all the time at I'm not going to out them, but there's this one gym I go to which has a lot of carabiners where the carabiner itself doesn't clip. Like a carabiner is supposed to be a complete loop. Like this thing opens and then it locks into itself and like holds on. And there's a lot of cables, and I'm not talking about just like the light cable stacks where you can do push downs and stuff like that. I'm talking about like the heavy seated cable row, and the carabiner is just open, right? Just waiting for somebody strong to come up to it, do a really good set, and just fucking break it and then do a backflip. Or I've gone to one machine where it was like it was a laying hack squat basically. It had a weight stack, so there was a cable, and I could see on part of the cable it was kind of hidden. You'd really have to look for it. Part of the cable was like completely frayed. It looks like only half of the, whatever kind of metal wire was actually holding on throughout that little portion, and the rest just looked like this, just hanging off. I mean, just make sure you set your shit up right. I'm sure we've all seen the clips of dudes going up to, do an inclined bench or something, and then as soon as they sit down on it, the bench like jumps down to flat because they didn't have the pin in all the way. That's the sort of thing where just a little bit of carelessness could seriously mess you up. So, just something to keep an eye on. And obviously, I mean, that's common sense, but don't get too complacent. You never know if the dude next to you left the pin just barely hanging on something, and like you go to sit down and you get a big jolt. The last thing that I would ever want to happen if I've got, we're getting up into a couple hundreds of pounds worth of load in whatever kind of orientation. The last thing I want to happen is to have an abrupt movement where that weight ends up coming back at me. Ugh, not ideal. Not even something I want to think about. But tomorrow's going to be arms, triceps, biceps. I think I want to throw shoulders in too. I want to do some shoulders. My delts, they're pretty strong. They're not what I would consider a weak body part. Honestly, I'd say in relation to everything else, my shoulders are definitely up there in the lead. They're they're Ivy League in terms of size relative to everything else. Like I want my arms to catch up to my shoulders. I want my chest to catch up to my shoulders. And then, everybody wants bigger legs, so you get the idea there. But that's kind of why I don't hit them on a, bi-weekly basis like I hit everything else. I basically I go through my whole body in about 4 days. Well, exactly 4 days. So really I hit everything twice every 8 days. But that's pretty much just about there with twice a week. But I'm not going to do shoulders every 4 days just because they're already ahead of the game. If I were to keep hitting them, they're just going to keep growing and growing and growing to the point where, it's going to make my arms look smaller by comparison. But I still want to hit them every so often. If not purely for the sake of just getting a shoulder pump because I like it, but I still want to get a little bit of activation going. I don't know. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I really just miss having a shoulder pump. That might be the full extent of it. But, shoulders every maybe 2 weeks-ish. Just to make sure they keep moving. I like it. Something like that. Maybe even every week. Because part of me is thinking, okay, I don't want them to get too big just because everything should be in proportion. But then another part of me is like, I want everything to get big let's fucking throw some lateral raises around. Let's get a crazy shoulder pump. So it's conflict of interests between proportion and what's a cool word I'm trying to think of. I was about to say distortion. Proportion and just size, you know. So I think that's pretty much all I got. Cardio in the morning, of course, with calves. I've been doing instead of doing calves at the end of my lifts, I've just been kind of adding them at the end of the cardio. Just because sometimes, I mean, really all that is making me do that is usually I end up skipping calves if it's at the end of the lift. Because after a lift like that, you know, today's back day, I just want to get in the car, go home, and eat. You know, I don't want to sit there and deal with anything else. So, yeah. That's all from me, man. That is all from me. So, I will catch you tomorrow.